are 4 types of sentences that we can use in our writing. And oftentimes we write essays using just simple sentences. And sometimes we might throw in a couple of compound sentences. But there are some prerequisites that we need to know in order to add complex and compound sentences. And all of this enhances your writing. Our essential question is, how can we use clauses to enhance our writing? There are 2 types of clauses. We have the independent clause and the dependent clause. The independent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate or verb and expresses a complete thought. It is a sentence. It can stand by itself. Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. Jim is your subject, studied is your verb. Then you have some prepositional phrases. Your dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, but it cannot stand alone. Often a dependent clause is marked by a dependent marker, and we'll talk about that in a minute. An example of a dependent clause is when Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, he did not make a good grade. Or when Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, he forgot some of the material. What happened when he studied? The thought is incomplete. So you have to add an independent clause in order for it to make sense. Now, a dependent marker word is a word like when. When is a subordinating conjunction. When put in front of an independent clause, it makes that clause dependent instead of independent. A dependent marker word is a word added to the beginning of an independent clause that makes it into a dependent clause. When Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, it was very noisy. If you leave when, then you have Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. So you're going from independent to dependent by adding a subordinating conjunction to the front of that independent clause. Some common dependent markers are as follows. There's a list: after, although, as if, because, before, even as, etc. Can you think of a sentence where you may use one of these? Take 60 seconds and write a sentence that includes a dependent clause. Now remember, you want to use one of these in front of your independent clause. Great job, John. Thank you for your response. And I like to throw in a little cartoon every now and then. My mom is an English teacher, and she says Santa's elves are subordinate clauses. Wow, what does that mean? Subordinate clauses, because we have Santa Claus and the elves help him. The elves are helpers, so they need him to be complete. So they are subordinate clauses. Now let's do a little practice together as a class. Let's look at these. You have dependent and independent clauses. Each sentence contains a clause in capital letters. Decide whether this clause is dependent or independent. The first one. Johnny, you will read it.
If you don't fix the car, it will continue to leak oil.
Is this an independent independent or dependent clause, it will continue to leak oil. Is it a sentence? Or can it stand by itself, or does it need help?
It needs help.
No, it doesn't, Johnny, because it will continue to leak. It is your subject, will continue what? To leak oil. It can stand by itself. So we have to be very careful. If it has a subordinating conjunction in front of it, then it's dependent. So this particular one is independent.
Independent.
While the car is being fixed, we will need to take the bus. This, while the car is being fixed, is what? While the car is being fixed. Dependent or independent? Can it stand by itself?
No, because it don't have a subordinate clause in front of it.
It can't stand by itself because it has a subordinating conjunction in front of it. It isn't necessary to cram all night if you have studied a little each day. If you have studied a little each day, it starts with what? A
If.
subordinating conjunction. So if it starts with a subordinating conjunction, will it be independent or dependent? It starts with the subordinating conjunction, so will it be independent or dependent?
Dependent.
It will be dependent because that if changes that independent clause to a dependent clause. Now, what I'd like for you to do is take some of your work time and complete 4, 5, 6, and 7. You must remember that the difference between an independent clause and a dependent clause is relevant as it relates to what it starts with. It can start with a subordinating conjunction, and in some cases it can start with a relative pronoun, and we'll discuss that later in the lesson. We can enhance our writing by using various types of sentences like a complex or compound complex sentence, because we want to avoid short, choppy sentences in our writings. Are there any questions? Proceed with your work time.